did that wrong. Well, that's wrong. All right, so I know it's been a while since I've done any kind of video uploading or capturing. I get a lot of questions about swivels, high pressure 90-degree swivels. I have 3 here that have been disassembled, cleaned. All the components have been cleaned. I have everything here to put them back together. I have all the parts opened up and kind of categorized. So I'm gonna go through rebuilding all 3 of them, putting them together. Starting with the little bearing cups here. I'm gonna grab some grease. Get that little O-ring, just push it in there. These are the black O-rings. They go down inside the bearing cup. Okay, set those aside. Wipe the grease off of your fingers. Next, I'll take the blue high pressure seal, take the red O-rings, just go ahead and walk the O-rings on. And this isn't a specific way you have to do it. This is just the way that I do it, especially when there's 3 to build. I just like to lay all the parts out at once, get everything in front of me, and have everything ready to go. It's so difficult to get these little O-rings on here. And I have cut them before with my nail, trying to push them on with my nail, so I try to just use the tips of my fingers. Boy, if you didn't have thumbs and try to do this, I don't know what you do. You need that dexterity. Okay, slight mix up, but now I'm gonna put the swivel shafts in the bearing cups. So for that, we'll need our grease. This is our moly grease that we'll use. Just put a nice coat on there, slide it in. One side of the hoop seal has a flat. The other side actually comes to a point. The flat goes downward toward the backup ring. And you can take your high pressure seal and your high pressure O-ring assembly, slide them on there. Now the high pressure seal, the cone on that seal does need to fit inside that hoop seal, just like that. There you go. Now what I'll do is take this Moly Coat 111 compound, just put it on here. Just some lube so when things slide together, they go together a little easier. Don't use blue lube here. Blue lube is not intended for this purpose. Use food grade lubricant or something of that nature. This is similar to that. Also, we do have these kits for sale. We can supply them to you. I'll put a link down in the description or email address. You can email us and we can send you these kits if you so wish to build your own. You can also just send us your swivels. That's what this client does. They have a couple of machines and they found that it's better that we rebuild their swivels. Press a washer in. Want a little more grease in there. One thrust bearing, and I kind of push it in and push it down. That helps push grease through those needle bearings. And take you another washer, push it down, coat the whole top of it with some grease. I know it looks messy. Trust me, it does not matter. And there's one. I'm gonna set these to the side over here, out of the way. So I was second guessing myself as I'm talking. I did put a washer down there. I don't know how to pull it apart and look. I just didn't believe myself. Slide that back down there. Thrust washer on top. Okay. You're kind of getting a little bit of a daze when you do these, because you're doing so many of them. Now, the next step that I would do is now that we have these assembled, I would slide them into there. This has lubricant on it. We have the bearing assembly set up. We have the bearing assembly all put together. These are cleaned out, washed, rinsed with alcohol, blown out. They all checked out good. So we're gonna slide it in there. One thing I haven't done in the past is put any grease on this back side of this cup. There's a hole. Let me set this down. There's actually a hole right here. The camera will pick that up in the glare. Yep, there's a hole right there. That hole is exposed here. And a lot of times dirt and junk and spray from being near the cutting head will get in there. It can kind of junk this up a little bit. So I think I'm going to try putting a little grease on the back side of here. Don't really ever see an issue, but I'm just going to try this on a few of them. I know these swivels will be back for a rebuild probably in the next year, so I'll just note that I did this to them and see if it made a difference. Sub-assemblies are ready. Next step is we would put the caps on. What I do see a lot of times, these caps, I don't know, get discolored in here. I mean, they all clean up really well at the end of the day. Take some scrubbing action. But I have seen some of them gall. The thought is if you pile up enough grease around here, that transfers into the cap, and then there's not as much of an issue with galling, or I don't know. So that's why I pile up the grease around each one of those stems. To start this process, take your tube of blue lube. This is where you use the blue lube on the threads. I'll put a couple of dabs. Spread it around with my finger. These technically don't get torqued to a specific torque setting. They have a positional setting. So these threads aren't holding any torque really when you assemble it, which is, Blue Lube is an anti-galling agent. So, I mean, that's about how much I put on there. I don't get crazy with it. I just put some on there. That tight. That's tight, so I'm going to back that off, give it some slack. That's tight. I'm going to back that off to about there. That's how I'm going to do it. Now, how much do you tighten it? Well, how much do you back it off? I'll run them until they are tight. And I don't torque this. I mean, I don't put it in a vise and pull on it. I just get it tight. You actually set these up loose, of all things. Get that tight. And there's actually a procedure somewhere that I read. You back this off 90 degrees, so 90 degrees would be here, roughly here, plus or minus 180 degrees to get the holes to line up. So 180 degrees would be here, and that would be here. Well, that doesn't quite line up. I just know from experience that you want them to run a little loose. There's a gap you can measure here. I did it on a previous video. I just know I want these to run a little on the loose side rather than on the tight side, because if they ran on the tight side, this one would be tight. I mean, that one barely comes around. This one I have to back off. And you see I don't quite have I have a gap there. They don't meet up well. So I'm just gonna know that these are gonna set up on the loose side, and it's gonna be all right. Otherwise, that bronze backup ring can get jammed down in the bore of the swivel body, and then you gotta drill it out. That seems to happen anyways, most of the time. I don't know. I just learned to set them up loose. So there's that one actually has a little bit of a burr on the thread I can feel. Back that one off, back that one off. There we go. And the last part is put the gland nuts and the collars on. The anti-vibration collar is already in the bottom of those. I don't think I videoed putting that in, but they're in there. The anti-vibration collar is a little split collar that fits down inside of the gland nut here. How far to run the little collar on? Well, I do it till there's at least 3 threads exposed, or in this case, because we have so much gap here, we hardly have any gap there, which is okay. That is quite all right. If you were to tighten this gap up here, then we would have more play here. But the design intent behind these is to work just like I'm putting them together. And you see I'm just running that down until I really can't grab it anymore with my fingers. That's just about right. Lastly, what we'll do is, because these are going to go to the customer, we'll put some Blue Lube on the threads, and then we'll put a cap on the gland nuts, just so nothing gets in there. Now, if you wanted to go one step further, what I get a lot of is people saying that there's trash on top of the orifice. At this point, your system is open. You have your high pressure lines open and exposed. There's probably airborne debris floating around your shop. Wouldn't be a bad idea to blow out the couplings that these thread into. The couplings probably have dirt in them. You could pull them off, wash them, clean them out. because everything downstream of here leads to the orifice. And if junk gets on that orifice, you're either going to have to clean it or replace it, and you're going to battle it. So at this point, I would maybe go another step further and clean those couplings, get all the gunk and junk out of those, because you know they're crusty. Also, I like to put a little blue lube on the cone. I know it's just a little bitty cone there, but that's what makes the seal. If it doesn't seal, then it's going to leak out the weep hole on the coupling. And one last step, I would say, if you wanted to, there's going to be a little bit of grease in those stems. You could just take your blowgun, stick it up to the end of there, and shoot some air through it, and it would probably blow out a little bit of grease. That will also get blown out when you first start your pump and you open the cutting head. You'll hear like this crack. That's the grease and everything kind of shooting out. That will go through the orifice within reason. I mean, if you pack 5 pounds of grease in there, it won't. Same thing with the blue lube. A little blue lube will get in there. That'll shoot right through the orifice. But the debris can cause the orifice to fail. That's what I've seen. So take those couplings off, clean those couplings out really good, and put those back on. Just take another 20 minutes, and you'll save yourself about an hour worth of headache. So there you go. 3 swivels rebuilt, ready to go to work. Thanks for watching.